In this video, we'll add interesting image effects to our scene using Unity's new post-processing stack. Now I just want to let you know that the post-processing stack is not currently part of the main Unity engine. Instead, you have to download it from the asset store. This is a free asset directly from Unity, and I've already gone ahead and downloaded it for us, but I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of this fact. So I'm going to go back into the scene view, and if I scroll down a little bit in the project settings, you can see that we do have that post-processing folder, so we're good to go. Image effects need to be added to the main camera in the game. So I'm going to select our main camera, I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom, and I'm going to go to Add Component, and up here at the top I'm just going to search for Post, and we want to add the post-processing behavior to our camera. So this is like a holder for our post-processing stack. You can see that we have a slot for the profile, but no profile yet. So let's go ahead and make that next. So I'm actually just going to go into the post-processing folder itself. I'm going to right-click, I'm going to go to Create, and I am going to choose Post-Processing Profile. Let's name this Swords and Shovels. And now let's add this to the main camera. So I'm going to reselect the main camera, scroll down, and I'm going to drag it into the post-processing behavior profile. Alright, so we're all set. Let's reselect Swords and Shovels. What's really awesome about these post-processing profiles is the fact that we could freely use them between different scene cameras and even between different projects. This means that if we really like a setup for a camera, all we have to do is take this asset and plug it in wherever we need it. So we just have to make this once and use it as many times as we like. Even though the post-processing profile is added to our main camera, we're still going to be able to preview it with our scene camera, so we don't necessarily have to go over to the game view to see what we're doing. So in the inspector over here, you can see that we have several different sections, all with different names, such as anti-aliasing, and if we click on them, it actually shows a roll down with further presets. These are all different effects that we could add to our scene. So I'm going to go through and just turn on a few of them so we can get a feel for what we're doing. Let's start with ambient occlusion. I'm going to tick the box to enable it, and immediately you could see that there's a drastic lighting change in our scene. If we go to our game view, and I'm going to toggle this on and off again, we can see that we have a lot of kind of self-shadowing going on, which is a really great effect. I'm going to click on ambient occlusion to roll out its other options, and I'm actually going to bring up the ambient occlusion intensity to 1.5. This is already starting to make the shadows and our overall lighting look so much better, and we only have one option set up so far. So let's collapse ambient occlusion, and let's move on to bloom. Now this isn't going to look like much without our fire, so let's go into play mode. And we can see that right now our fire looks a little bit flat. If we turn on bloom, immediately we get this really cool glowing effect, but by the same hand we're getting some flickering as well. If we click on the drop down for bloom and scroll down a little bit, you'll notice that we have an option for anti-flicker, so let's go ahead and tick that. And that evens things out a little bit. If we go back into our scene view, we can see that this is looking pretty cool. Now that we're looking at the game in preview mode, we could actually see some jagged lines here. Let's go ahead and fix that with the anti-aliasing image effect. So I'm going to scroll back up, and I'm going to turn on anti-aliasing. And already it starts to improve our scene a little bit, but we're still getting some jagged lines. So let's go to anti-aliasing drop-down. You can see that I have the method set to temporal anti-aliasing. And let's bring down the spread to 0.4. So that's already looking really good. I'm going to get out of play mode. Notice the fact that the anti-aliasing options that we made while in play mode are still saved once we exit. So image effects are not subject to the lack of saving when editing in play mode, which is really helpful. So our lighting's really starting to come together. Let's continue on by adding a couple other elements. Let's come down to grain. And let's turn this on. When we first enable it, it looks like a really overblown effect, but let's click on the drop down and let's bring down the intensity to 0.2. So now it's a lot more subtle and just adds a little bit of texture to our scene. Finally, let's turn on vignette. This gives us a little bit of a dark edging around our scene, which helps add to the air of mystery of being in this cave system. Let's bring down the intensity a little bit to maybe 0.4, and let's leave the smoothness at 0.2. So here we are. I'm really happy with the way that our post-processing stack looks in our scene. In our next clip, we're going to move on to finalizing our lights.